Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Fire Recovery Forum for Manufactured Homeowners. The presentation today will be in English and Spanish. If you are on a desktop computer, you can select your language at the bottom of the screen. If you are on a tablet or cell phone, you can select the language at the top of the screen. And Hilda?
Thank you, Pam. Let me interpret that. Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos aquí reunidos en el foro de recuperación del incendio para dueños de casas móviles. Bienvenidos, es la representante Pam Marsh. La presentación va a ser en inglés y en español. Si usted está en una computadora, usted puede elegir el idioma español a la parte baja de su pantalla. Si usted está en una tableta o electrónica o en un teléfono celular, puede hacer la elección en la parte de arriba de la pantalla. Gracias.
Thank you. I want to start by expressing particular thanks to Hilda Montenegro Fix and Yvonne Martinez Razo, who are providing the Spanish interpretation today, trading off because it's a big job to listen to English and speak in Spanish. I also want to thank our ASL interpreter, Elizabeth Schepler, who will be on the screen, and we will probably keep our other participants off the screen so that you can't, those of you who would like to use the ASL interpretation can get a full view of Elizabeth. Thank you all so much for being here on our behalf. My name is Pam Marsh. I'm the state representative for Southern Jackson County, which includes the communities of Ashland, Talent, and Phoenix. And I am the host of tonight's forum on manufactured housing.
Thank you, Pam. Let me interpret that, and then I think I'm going to get switched to simultaneous by Hannah. Quiero dar las gracias a Hilda Montenegro y Ivonne Martínez, que van a estar haciendo la interpretación al español, y a Elizabeth Schepler, que es la persona que va a hacer la interpretación para las personas sordas. Mi nombre es Pam Marsh, soy la representante del estado para el sur del condado de Jackson, y estamos felices de que estén aquí con nosotros el día de hoy.
Thank you, Hilda.
And I'm still waiting to get switched to simultaneous. Hannah? Just want to make sure we don't miss anything of what you're about to say.
Thank you.
Great. Hilda, you should be switched over.
There is just no getting away from the fact that this has been an awful month here in the Rogue Valley. The Almeda fire on September 8th swept through our community.
No hay manera de saber.
Oops.
Yeah, I'm not switched yet. I can't interpret yet because I'm still interfering with Pam. I'm sorry, Pam.
Okay.
I got it. I got it. Let me okay that.
Hilda, are you switched now, do you think? Okay, I think we got everybody in our lanes. There is just no getting away from the fact that this has been an awful month for us. The Almeda fire on September 8th swept through our community and destroyed 2,500 houses. 1,700 of those were manufactured homes or RVs. Many of us are now without homes, and thousands more of us are grieving for our friends and neighbors. But we have no choice to start the process of recovery. And tonight's forum will provide information that is specific to residents who lost their manufactured homes in the fire. Our presenters will address the multitude of issues facing individuals whose homes burned, including insurance guidance, FEMA applications, cleanup responsibilities, landlord-tenant issues, and more. After the presentation, and as time allows, we will have a question and answer period. If you have any questions that arise during the presentation, please enter those in the chat or comments box. You can type them in using your keyboard, and we will try to answer as many as we can. Again, if you are on a computer, the chat box will be at the bottom of your screen. If you are on a tablet, phone, or other device, it may be at the top. Just click on the box and type in your question. But I want to assure you, if we don't get to your questions tonight, and there's no issue that we have a lot of content, we will post answers to every question after the forum on my Representative Pam Marsh Facebook page and on our legislative web page. We know that we are in an unfolding situation. We still cannot answer every question, and we don't yet know exactly how recovery will evolve. But the message for tonight's forum is that we have people to call upon, experts who will help us figure out the path forward in the months ahead. And before we dive into tonight's content, I just want to again remind attendees that the presentation will be in English and Spanish. If you are on a desktop, you can select your language at the bottom of the screen. If you're on a tablet or cell phone, you can select the language at the top of the screen. And with that, I think we are ready to dive into tonight's content. The first question facing anyone who has lost their home in the fire may be the very simple question of how to prove that you were ever an owner of that home in the first place, because it is very likely that your title papers burned up along with your home. Tonight, we're going to have Warren Jackson, who is with the Building Codes Division, State of Oregon, to help us understand how to go about just retrieving your paperwork. And Warren?
Hi, thank you, Representative Marsh. What I'll try to do here is walk through the process live online on how to retrieve your ownership documents. So with that, I'll try to share the screen. I'm hoping everyone can see a web page here.
It's visiting, Warren.
Can you see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I did here is I actually did a quick search for Oregon building codes, which took me directly to the building codes page. We are in the process of adding a link here specifically for wildfire information. However, at this point in time, the way to find that is to scroll down. Here it says manufactured home ownership. So we would click on the link. And it brings this very first thing here is actually a step-by-step guide on how to do what I'm doing right now. I know the guide looks kind of long. It's 9 pages, but it shows every step that you would need to do, and it shows it in great detail. But on that document, I just simply clicked on the link. So again, scroll down here, click the link, and it brings me to this website. Now, you'll see here it says login. You do not need to create a login to obtain your ownership documents. So you go up to the yellow box, click manufactured home, and then you can search for your record. And there are several ways you could do it. Probably the easiest is by your address. And in this search engine, really the less information you put in here, the better, so you don't accidentally not get your record. So in this case, I'm going to type in a street name, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, but I think it's Luman. As you can see, it gives me quite a long list. It says there's over 100 results. So that's probably a little too much. So in this case, I'll probably want to narrow it down. It looks like a large manufactured home park with all the same address, but different space numbers. So I can go to select SPC, short for space. And let's say, for example, I am unit 101. So space 101. I can search for that, and that will narrow it down. So it brought up one active record. If I want, I can get more details. But in this case, I'm looking for the ownership document. I can click on that. It'll bring up this screen that will automatically populate with the document you're looking for. And so you hit submit, and it will create a PDF document, the ownership document. So if I want, I can either print that out by clicking print, I can download it, or I can send it to myself or somebody else. So in this case, I'm going to send it to myself. I'm going to click other. Maybe you want to send it to your insurance company, but I'll just type in my email address. And click send. I'll click it again. Okay, and so it lets me know that it has sent the document to my email address. And if I were to go to my email, which I don't know if it's iPhone, reminders, inbox. It takes a little bit of time. Oh, but here it is. It's already arrived. It sent the document to myself, or I sent it to myself, and I can open that again. I'm not sure if you see that, but it just opened. And that's really how simple it is to go online and print out a copy of your ownership document.
So Warren, what should someone do if they're struggling through this and it's just not working? Is there a place that they can go for help?
Yeah, they can feel free to give me a call or call our office here.
And can you type into the chat your contact information?
I can. I will do that here shortly. Chat.
And is there anything else? Is it that simple, or is there anything else that people should know?
No, it really is that simple. Even I was able to do that. There's my name and phone number. I'll type in my email address as well. Yeah, I think the folks that put that together did a really good job making it not overly complicated, making it fairly simple, and making it very easy to obtain your documents.
Wonderful. So not to worry if you don't know where those documents are. We will help you find them, go through the process that Warren just outlined, or if you run into problems, contact Warren. And please not to worry, we will capture all of this information, write it up, and have it available to you after this webinar is over. So thank you so much, Warren, for your presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So after you have your title papers in hand, or even before, your next step, if you have insurance, is going to be to file a claim. We have a couple of presenters here to talk about best practices in filing a claim and how that might work for you. And I'm going to first ask Ron Frederickson, who is the consumer advocate with the Division of Financial Regulation in the state. In short, he works with insurance. Ronald, what can you tell us that should be important to consumers?
Generally speaking, this type of insurance is a type of a homeowner's form, and most people are familiar with homeowners insurance. But there are different types of homeowners insurance, and there is a form or an endorsement designed for manufactured housing. It covers, generally speaking, the unit itself and personal property and additional living expenses. So the easiest one, I guess, to discuss first is the unit itself. Oftentimes, manufacturers' homes are written on what's called an actual cash value basis. And not to delay, but it's different than having a stick-built house that has to be rebuilt from the ground up, as opposed to being able to go somewhere and find a similar unit. It's not quite like a car, but it's not quite like a house. It's kind of hard to make that direct comparison, but evaluating the value of a unit is relatively straightforward in my experience on the unit itself. Personal property is covered. Let me back up just a second. With some of the newer homes, there may be replacement cost coverage, which means they would buy a new one rather than pay the value of the old one. You're going to have to check with your insurance company to see if that was available and if you chose to buy it. Personal property is generally covered first for its actual cash value, and then as you replace the property, you can get replacement cost if that's what you bought. Additional living expense is the additional cost to live somewhere else or go out to eat or whatever the case may be while the claim is being settled or while the property is being repaired or rebuilt. Again, in my experience, usually in situations like this, they're total losses. So it's not like you're spending 6 months trying to get your house rebuilt, if that's an apt comparison for anybody here. So our advice is, number one, contact your insurance company as soon as you can. Oftentimes insurance companies that have a fair number of insureds in the same location will send out catastrophe teams. So there are people on site that are trained to handle catastrophe situations. They come from all over the country. They may have handled a hurricane or a tornado loss a few months back, but now they're working on this massive fire loss. They're very good at what they do generally, and they're very quick. We do suggest that people keep a journal, pick up an inexpensive spiral notebook or something like that, just to keep track of what conversations that you may have. Keep receipts if you go out to eat or are not able to be in your home. Even if your home is not damaged, there may be some coverage if you were ordered to evacuate because a fire was coming. Check with your insurance company on that. Start an inventory of your personal property. I don't know about anybody on this call, but most of us don't have such a thing. And so when you start thinking about every teaspoon, every teacup, every towel, every t-shirt, plus your bigger items that everybody can understand, that they remember their TV and all that stuff, but you need to start making a list of those things, because that's going to be the basis upon which the insurance company settles the claim ultimately. Insurance companies may come out and offer money right up front. We actually think that's a great idea. They're not obligated to do that, but if not everybody has the wherewithal to go someplace else, and so they may offer what's called an advance payment, which will ultimately be deducted from anything else that's paid, but it gets you on the way. They may do the same thing with personal property, offer to pay a portion of the personal property coverage so you can start replacing your property. That's kind of a broad general prescription on what they should probably be doing right now. These are very emotional situations. I can tell you that before I became a senior policy analyst and consumer advocate, I did work in this business and handled fire claims. And it's a very difficult time for people. It's an emotional loss as well as a financial loss. And so we encourage you to stay in touch with your claim rep and make sure that you understand what's going on and what steps you need to take and what you need to do next as you go through the process.
Ron, can you tell us if people run into problems or have issues with their insurance coverage, what's available to them in your State Department? What should they do? What can they draw upon?
The Division of Financial Regulation includes the insurance commissioner. Actually, the head of our DCBS agency is the insurance commissioner. We have an advocacy team, and all we do really is answer questions and handle complaints that people have about insurance companies. So if you're looking for neutral information, you can contact our agency. The direct line is 888-877-4894, and I will put that in the chat. Or if you really have a problem, you can file a complaint and one of our advocates will get involved and contact the insurance company on your behalf. Just for clarification, what we would be doing is determining whether or not the insurance company is in compliance with the insurance code and the terms of their contract. And we have a fair amount of influence on insurance companies. We don't represent you, however. We can't settle your claim for you or negotiate your claim for you, but we can at least get information and get people working in the right direction. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you. And it's also a wonderful transition to our next speaker on the insurance issues. I'd like to introduce Clinton Tapper. He is an attorney with the Tapper Law Firm, and maybe the place that you need to go if you, in fact, do need representation. So Clinton, welcome. And you're going to tell us some best practices for filing a claim and things that individuals should be looking out for.
Thank you, Representative Marsh. Yeah, as Ms. Marsh said, my name is Clinton Tapper. I've been an attorney representing people in fire claims for about 10 years now. And because I am an attorney, I have to do the attorney thing and say that nothing I'm saying here today should be construed as legal advice, and nothing that I'm doing today should be construed as creating an attorney-client relationship. If anybody does want to talk to me, I'm posting my information in the chat right here. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody who's having any sort of problems with their insurance claim. I'm going to piggyback a lot on what Mr. Frederickson just said. Mobile home policies are a lot like homeowners policies. They're a little different because it's not exactly a stick-built house. But
Clinton,
they are going to include most of the.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second and ask you to talk a little bit more slowly so that we can make sure that everything you're saying is being picked up by our interpreters.
I'm sorry about that. Homeowners, mobile home policies are similar to homeowners policies, but they're not the same. They're generally going to include structure coverage, which will cover the actual dwelling, contents coverage to pay for your stuff that you lost, and additional living expense. And ALE covers any increased expenses that you may incur from the loss, including a place to stay, meals out, additional mileage. Now, there are some additional coverages that you may have, things like debris removal. And I know that a lot of people are dealing with debris right now and trying to figure out how to get that covered. This is a potential coverage that you have under your policy. As Mr. Frederickson was saying, the thing is, in Oregon, almost every policy is different. Your policy is not going to be the same as your neighbor's policy or your friend's policy. And so what I generally recommend is that people contact their adjuster or their insurance company and ask for a certified true copy of their policy. And I'm going to say that again, a certified true copy. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you your limits and your coverages and your exclusions that are uniquely yours. And so if you have any questions, that document is really going to control what's covered and what's not. So in general, the way a fire claim works, and Mr. Frederickson addressed it, some mobile home policies are going to be based on actual cash value. Some are going to be based on what's called replacement cost value. In general, the way that a claim works is you submit your claim to the insurance company. You work with the insurance company to what's called adjust the loss, wherein you go back and forth on the value of the property lost, both the real property and the contents. And then the insurance company will make a payment based on actual cash value. That's the value of the property less the age, condition, and use, otherwise known as depreciation. If you have replacement cost, you can then use that actual cash value payment to begin replacing your property. And as Mr. Frederickson was saying, the best practice there is to keep your receipts and submit those to the insurance company along with identifying what items of property you're replacing. And there's a key term here called like, kind, and quality. Like, kind, and quality means that you can replace your property with new property that is the same or substantially similar to the property you lost. And for that, you want to pay attention to things like brands, quality, age. You can replace and then recapture that depreciation if you've got the replacement cost insurance. I think it's also worth noting that even if you have replacement cost insurance, you don't necessarily need to replace. That actual cash value payment is yours, and if you decide to replace, you can, but you don't have to. Some best practices associated with making a claim, again, as Mr. Frederickson said, get a notebook. Get a notebook and keep it by your phone. You're going to be talking to a lot of different people, and it's entirely possible, and this is not necessarily anything that the insurance company is doing that's bad, but it's possible that one of your adjusters isn't going to know what the other adjuster said. When you have that notebook, you write down who you talked to, when you talked to them, and what you talked about. And then if later in the claim someone says, well, you know, I don't know about this coverage, you can say, no, on such and such a date, I talked to such and such a person, and they said that we could do this. That can really save you if you're dealing with just the sort of general bureaucracy of having a claim. As also Mr. Frederickson said, you want to start making a list of the property that you lost. This is difficult. I mean, it's traumatic and it's hard, but the best way to do this is to, again, get that notebook, sit down and start thinking room by room, what did I have? There's sources you can go to if you've got an in the cloud photo account, or if you've got any photographs of your house, if you've got an Amazon list, if you've got bank statements that show what you bought, all of those things are worth going back through to see if you can jog your memory and recreate it. I also advise clients that they should try to do this once, do it really thoroughly, and then not continue to do it. And this is hard because everybody, when you lose a whole house full of stuff, I can virtually guarantee that 6 months from now, you're going to be looking and saying, oh, I forgot to add this to the list. I forgot to add that to the list. You're going to be a lot better off if you start and have as much of it as you can on that list to begin with. The final thing, and again, as Mr. Frederickson said, well, not quite the final thing, but keep track of your receipts. You really do need those. Those are going to be, if you're going to make that replacement cost claim, those are going to be what you're going to use to show that you actually replaced your property. And then I suppose the final thing is don't get angry. And I know that this can be a very, very frustrating process. It's hard and you can be dealing with a lot, but there are rules in Oregon, particularly rules about cooperating with insurance companies and not misrepresenting. And the cases I see that are really bad are where people get frustrated and say, you know what, I'm just gonna say I had a bunch of stuff that I didn't have, or I'm going to just ignore this person. I'm not gonna talk to these guys anymore. And those things can cause you to lose your entire claim simply because that you're not following the rules about what you need to do under the policy. So the insurance company has a set of duties that they need to fulfill, and people do too. So keep working with them, keep cooperating, don't get angry, and that's my best advice for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Clinton. I think in these times when we're all feeling on edge, it's good counsel to take a deep breath and work through the process as best you can. So thank you. Stand by. When we get to questions and answers, we may have some technical questions for you. The next big entity that you're going to need to take on if you lost your home is FEMA. We know it's essential to register for FEMA for a number of different reasons. I am happy to have Sarah Malik here, who is with FEMA with Region 10. She's going to tell us about the process of applying for assistance from FEMA and what to expect. We have a second presenter on this subject too, Chelsea Cato, who is the manufactured housing analyst with Oregon Housing and Community Services. And she's kind of the backup plan. If you've gone through the official FEMA process and it hasn't worked for you, or you've hit a brick wall, Chelsea is going to provide some suggestions about additional help that you can get. So with that, Sarah, how do you go about even applying for FEMA and what should you expect?
Hi. Well, the best way to apply is to either call the 800 number, which is 800-621-0000. 3362. You can also go online to disasterassistance.gov if you have that capability. And there's an electronic version that you can fill out. And while you're there, you can also set up a disaster assistance account that will allow you in the future to monitor your case and check on status. And if you have documents or any other information that needs to be uploaded to your account, you can do it directly through that. There is also a FEMA mobile app that you can download and you can register for assistance that way. What you can expect is that there's a significant amount of information that we ask for, primarily name, address, social security number, your income, and damage assessment in terms of what kind of damage that you had, the number of people in your household, and listing those people in your household. It's a significant amount of information. Primarily, we ask all of those questions because we have to be able to verify that you are who you say you are as part of that process. And also it helps us to move your case forward to know what kind of damage you had and what your situation is. So what you can expect there, if you think you might need a little bit of extra help, I would suggest that you call the 800 number, because then that way you'll actually be talking to a person who will be taking your registration directly. Once you've registered for assistance, then the next step in that is that an inspector will call the applicant and set up an appointment for you to do an inspection. All of our inspections are being done remotely now. We used to do them in person, but because of COVID, we have started doing them remotely. So the inspection takes place over the phone, over by an interview, essentially. The inspector will ask the homeowner questions, and then that information gets uploaded into our processing system. And then from that, a determination is made. And then once that determination is made, depending upon whether or not the person chose EFT or direct deposit, or if they chose to get a paper check, the timeline for getting the assistance with EFT could be less than 72 hours. If you choose to get a paper check, it could take up to 2 weeks, particularly now with the mail system is running a little bit slower these days, and so that can take a little bit longer. If for some reason there's any information that's provided that doesn't match up, like if the identity verification doesn't make it through our software system, then you'll get a letter that says that you're not eligible because of the identity verification not passing. But all that means is that you just need to submit the documentation to prove that. And it doesn't mean that you're done in any way, shape, or form. In fact, most of the time, when you get letters that say that you're ineligible, it really means that we just need more information. So I would highly encourage people to really read the letters that they get, make sure that they understand what's being asked for. And if you don't know what's being asked for, please call the 800 number and ask the question. The other thing that I will note is that we are opening an external outreach center in Jackson County tomorrow, where we will have staff who will be able to provide face-to-face support to folks. If they have questions, if they have documents that they need to upload and they don't have a capability to do that at home. The center is going to be in the Central High School in the same facility where the multi-agency resource center is set up. It's just in a different part of the building. So we will have our staff there starting tomorrow to be able to provide assistance to the folks of Jackson County.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a few follow-up questions that I think may reflect questions that are being, that our audience is considering. First, the multi-agency resource center opened last week. So the capability that you're describing as opening tomorrow is something a little bit different.
It is. So it's inside the same building, but we're going to be housed in a couple of different rooms somewhere in the school. And it will be only FEMA staff will be in the facility. And we do have a significant number of COVID precautions that we're taking in terms of when people come in. All of our staff will be wearing face shields and masks. And I know that can seem a little bit scary, but it's really for the protection of our staff, but also for the protection of survivors who are coming in to visit. But they will be there to be able to provide in-person assistance to folks who have any questions. We do also have, I believe, I think it's 3 or maybe 4 Spanish-speaking staff who are going to be supporting that center as well.
Right.
So we will have that capability.
So I have 2 more questions that I'm going to voice for the audience. One is there any way for you to articulate what kind of monetary assistance is available to people through what's been approved so far? How much if I come in, how will FEMA decide how much money I get, and what's the maximum or average benefit?
Well, so what you get really is based on the kind of damage that you had. In this particular situation, most of these folks, their homes were destroyed. I mean, it's fairly clear that that's really the case. And it depends a lot on if you have insurance, because if you have insurance, by law, we cannot duplicate insurance. But if it turns out that you're underinsured or the insurance doesn't cover all of the costs, then that's why we ask you to provide us with your insurance documents, because that way we can look at that and determine whether or not there is still assistance that we might be able to provide. And also we know that there are some types of insurance that may not cover wildfire. So if we have that documentation that shows that, then we can provide assistance. The max grant for this fiscal year, it changes every year based on the Consumer Price Index, is $35,500 for housing assistance. And the Other Needs Assistance Program, which is the personal property program, has an equal max of $35,500. Not everybody who walks in the door is going to get all of that money. It really depends on your individual case and what that looks like. Primarily for people whose homes are destroyed, they will likely get a max grant for housing assistance, which would be the $35,500. And that doesn't depend on the type of home that you have.
Okay. So I have one more question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know people are thinking about this question, which is many of the people who lost their manufactured homes who are the target of this webinar were people who may not be documented. Who is eligible for FEMA assistance? And is there, if you are eligible, is there any reason to be concerned about the sharing of your personal information between FEMA and other national agencies?
Well, so to be eligible for assistance, you do have to be a US citizen, a non-citizen national, or a qualified alien. And understanding the population that may be undocumented, if they do have children that were born in the United States that are citizens, the children can apply for assistance for the family or on behalf of the family. There is a process that works through. But otherwise, they would not be eligible for financial assistance. We do have some other programs that that are more human service type programs like disaster unemployment, disaster legal services, crisis counseling program, and disaster case management. Not all of those are turned on yet, but you don't have to register for FEMA to be eligible to receive those services. So, and the mass care services that we provide typically, like the non-congregate shelter that's being provided currently, those are things that don't require a FEMA registration in order to be able to utilize those services.
So you would either call the 1-800 number or go in to Central High School to get access to those services, or what would you do?
Are you talking about the other grant programs?
The
Crisis counseling?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So the disaster unemployment assistance is actually managed by the Oregon Employment Department. And so it's essentially for anybody who wouldn't otherwise be eligible for regular unemployment. Typically that would be people who are self-employed, maybe loggers, farmers, people who work on the gig economy, or who maybe are consultants, that kind of thing. And that program is actually already active. The application deadline is October 23rd. And again, if you're eligible for regular unemployment, this program isn't necessarily of great benefit. But in the Disaster Legal Services Program, actually is done in conjunction with the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division, and the Oregon State Bar will be managing that once that program is able to come online. But we're actively working with them to support that and get that up and running. The Crisis Counseling Program is a grant program that the state applies for, which they have, and we are in the process of reviewing the grant application. And once those services are available, the state will announce that, because it's a program that they manage. And those services will be available throughout the designated areas, typically managed by local health authorities.
Great. And just to clarify, we've got a question from the audience. We need some clarification around the question of families applying through their children. So if they apply because their children are legal residents or have documentation, is the family then eligible for all the monetary assistance otherwise provided?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Sarah, thank you so much for all of that information. I'm sure we have more questions. FEMA is a big part of our lives right now, so thank you for being here. Chelsea Keita, I want to introduce you. We know that sometimes people who are applying for FEMA, like any other government program, may run into some roadblocks. Can you briefly let our audience know what resources are available if you need help?
Sure. So as Sarah said, you want to make sure that you read your denial letter carefully. Look at the bottom to find details on why you were denied, and then it will tell you the steps that you need to take to appeal. If there isn't specific information on why you were denied, you can call the FEMA helpline. I did put some information in the chat box that has the phone number. I also wanted to share some online and some local resources in case you need help with FEMA appeals. There's the Center for Nonprofit Legal Services, which is out of Medford, and they are now taking calls for help with FEMA appeals for low-income residents in Jackson County. And I will include those phone numbers in the chat box. And then the Oregon Law Center, who has been helping us gather resources, will be putting together a group of attorneys pro bono to assist low-income households with the process of appeal. And then I did find a really great online site called National Disaster Legal Aid, and I will put that link in the chat. It essentially walks you through the whole process, and it helps you create an appeal letter. So it lets you, it's a tutorial that lets you plug in your information, and then it will help generate a letter that you can send. You would need to send that letter either by mail or via fax, and it has that information for you. And there is also a link that I will provide that does it in Spanish as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Chelsea. I am going to move now to cleanup responsibilities because we know there are a lot of questions and we're facing the very first step in our process of putting our community back together. And that is figuring out how to clean up sites that have been devastated. We know that there are a lot of questions about this, and we have a couple of great resources here. First, Michael Mortar, who is with the Oregon Department of Business and Consumer Services, and John Van Landingham, who is an attorney with the Oregon Law Center. John has been involved with issues around manufactured housing for, I'm going to say, decades, and is a wonderful resource on this subject. So Michael and John, Michael, let's start with you. What are consumers responsible for in terms of cleanup, if anything?
Yeah, to the extent that there may be a dynamic specific to manufactured home parks, I'll let John cue on that because I'm not as familiar with what those contracts may have in them. Certainly happy to talk to the group about what to expect from the state and federal government in terms of cleanup assistance. So I sit currently on the debris removal task force with some colleagues from ODOT and DEQ who are leading this effort right now. Basically, the conversations are very much engaged at the county level now. So the proposal in a very high level fashion is some degree of partnership between the federal agencies involved, the state, and some degree of county engagement. And so each county may have a slightly different model that they move forward under. But right now it's 2 stages with some clear certainty around household hazardous waste. So if folks have, if there's certain items like propane tanks on the property right now, I believe every county that was impacted, with the exception of Klamath, has moving forward in a process so that the state DEQ and EPA will come in on property sites and clean up household hazardous waste. So we don't want owners or folks that have been renting space to go on and start cleaning up their property now.
Michael, can you slow down just a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Thanks,
Thank you.
Representative. We do not want people going on their property and starting to clean up because what you don't know is what's in the ash right now. There could be a lot of hazards there. And so the state is asking folks not to start cleaning up their property yet, please. So that's really important. Need to get some assessments done to see what kind of risks are on those properties. Certainly, if folks are going on their property to retrieve personal items, that's acceptable, but not to start cleaning up and bagging up debris or brushing the debris around right now. That ash is not something that we want folks to be inhaling. So the first step is that the DEQ and the EPA, again, will do this cleanup of household hazardous waste. And then the next step will be each county makes a decision how they want to partner with the state and federal government on the cleanup for the more complete debris removal. And the concepts that are being discussed, people are worried about, what if I didn't have insurance? Am I somehow still responsible? And any of the models that we've looked at, if someone did not have coverage or they had insufficient coverage, that's not going to be an out-of-pocket expense to them at the end of the day. The whole concept of a coordinated debris removal is to say if people did have coverage, then let's use that. But certainly if they didn't, there are other resources out there to remedy that. So hopefully that's helpful for folks. Right now, we're just urging people to slow down and be patient for the process in terms of actually cleaning up property until the county executes the plan that it selects.
So it sounds like the really important takeaway for a lot of people is that the models that are being looked at will not require homeowners to make out-of-pocket expenses.
Yeah, we don't want, in fact, there's a very strong concern right now, and this has definitely happened in other states when there are disasters, is that you have People who pose as contractors and say, I can clean this up for you. One, they're likely not appropriately licensed to do that work as well. If they're not disposing of it properly, that could be a problem for the homeowner as well. So we definitely want folks to wait until there's guidance. The county, we're working closely with all the counties on that process.
Thank you. And John Van Lanningham, is there anything that you would like to add to that specific to manufactured housing, or have we covered it?
Of course, I want to say some things. I'm a lawyer. So I know what time is tight, so let me be brief. And I should start by doing the same disclaimer that Clinton Tapper gave you. I can't be your lawyer. I can't give you legal advice. But I hope to give you some summary, some guidance here. First, Michael's main point is really important. Don't clean this stuff up yourself. It's dangerous. We don't want people cleaning it up and carrying it down to the dump. Two, there was an article in this morning's Oregonian, so you can go to OregonLive.com about this very subject. And just as Michael said, suggesting that you go to Jackson County to get more information about the cleanup of your site. Are you legally responsible for it? My answer is no. There's not a clear answer in our statutes, and most landlord-tenant stuff, including manufactured home park tenancies, is in a statute, and I've written about half of that myself in a negotiated group, maybe even more than half. There's no clear answer there. But my view is that this is a natural disaster. In normal times, if your home burned and it was your fault, or even if it wasn't your fault, yes, you would be responsible, and your rental agreement probably has some heavy-handed language saying that's your responsibility. This is not normal times. The whole park burned. It's nobody's fault. It's a natural disaster. I mean, you could ask your landlord, are you responsible for the fire, landlord? Should you be paying me? I think your landlord would say no. If you're having trouble with this, with your landlord, everybody in the park should pull some money and hire a private lawyer and fight it. I'll give a longer answer with more legalese that we can post on Representative Marsh's page. And I think we also ought to be thinking about whether there's some legislative fixes we should be adopting in the Oregon legislature to address situations like this, even retroactively for this one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And we will talk more about legislative solutions. I want to go back. I realized when we were talking about both insurance and then FEMA, there is one additional possible source of support for families. And Chelsea, if I could draw upon you to give us a summary of the Oregon Wildfire Housing Fund and who that may benefit.
Sure. So Oregon Housing and Community Services, my agency, which is the state housing finance agency, has a wildfire damage housing relief fund. Now that fund was established before these wildfires. It was established a while ago, and originally it only had a small amount of money in it and not a lot of people accessing it. Since we've had the Oregon wildfires, we have asked for an additional $2 million to replenish the fund. What the legislature gave us was $10 million because they recognized the need. So that I'll put that link into the chat box as well. I just want to let folks know that right now, when you go there, it shows that you will be added to a wait list. And part of the reason for that is because we had originally run out of money very quickly. And then the other reason is that we are currently working with local agencies now that we have this new money to determine how to best disperse these funds. We know that they'll be going to wildfire impacted households, but we want to, we just got word, I think yesterday or the day before, that we were going to get the 10 million. And so we're working quickly and staffing up to determine how people can access this money. What you want to do is go ahead and go to the website, fill out the information. It's very brief, so you don't have to do a full-blown application. And you'll be placed on a wait list. And then when we have more information, we'll be contacting people. Right now, the fund is available for homeowners, which includes manufactured homeowners. Even if you're in a park and even if you rent your space, you're still considered a homeowner and you would be eligible. Right now, renters of manufactured homes are not eligible, but our staff are evaluating what the need is, and there might be some changes made to that. You can apply for up to, well, you apply and you can receive up to $7,000 in assistance. On the website, it will walk you through the income guidelines. You have to have an income that is at or below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. And there's a chart on the website. But of course, our staff that process the applications will go through that as well. And then I just wanted to let everyone know, just ask for patience, because we want to make sure, and I think Sarah touched on this when she talked about FEMA resources. FEMA cannot duplicate benefits or assistance that goes out. So we want to make sure that you are able to access FEMA resources. And if we were to give you a payout before you access insurance and FEMA resources, you might become ineligible for FEMA resources because you will have already gotten assistance from us. So we want to make sure that you can access as much as you can in assistance. And so it's just a matter of timing. So the first thing you want to do is work with your insurance if you have it, go through the FEMA process, but still fill out this wait list, but just know that we want to time it so that you can get all of the resources. And I see there was a question around undocumented workers receiving assistance. It's not tied to citizenship. So yes, it's open to undocumented folks.
So this may be one of the few resources for many of our renters. So we definitely want to keep an eye on the parameters around this fund and make sure that people have signed up, recognizing that those payments may not be issued for a while. Is that a fair statement? Yeah.
As soon as we have information, we're working with FEMA to find out whether or not a pre-approval letter would disqualify someone or count as duplication of benefits. So we should have more information shortly. We're hiring staff to be able to process these applications. And again, we want to make sure that we're also working with your local community agencies to figure out the best way to get these funds out. But definitely, it doesn't take a lot of time to get on the wait list. So I would advise folks to go ahead and do that so that we have your information and then we'll follow up.
And Chelsea, if you haven't posted that, will you post it? I want to note again, if you can copy these things down from the chat, go for it, but don't worry about it. We're going to accumulate all this information and make it available to people. So thank you very much for that, Chelsea. So we have one more formal presentation, and then we're going to go through a list of who can help when you get stuck. So for the final formal presentation, we are going to call on Bill Van Vliet. He is with the Network for Affordable Housing. Bill has been involved with manufactured home financing in a variety of ways for many years. And we wanted Bill to speak today because while we're dealing with disaster, we also want to look forward to rebuilding and think about the parks that might come back, the ways that we can make the purchase of new homes affordable for people. We know those issues are on people's minds. So Bill, can you give us a few minutes of wisdom in terms of what the future might hold?
Give you a few minutes so you can decide if whether it's wise or not when I'm finished, but thank you. It's pretty early in the process to be talking about reconstruction right now, just because, as you heard, there's a lot of very important cleanup work that needs to happen before anybody can even start to rebuild. But I can say that there is already a very strong interest across the area of rebuilding as many of these parks as can be. There's a good recognition of the importance of them in the community and the importance of this housing stock to people in the community. So that's good news for the area. So I think it's important to remember that Each of these parks is owned by a private owner, and each of them is going to need to make their own decision about how they proceed through reconstruction. And we know that several of them have already mentioned that they do have plans to go ahead and rebuild their park. So that's really great news. If owners decide they do not want to rebuild and would rather sell their park, then we are working with several nonprofit organizations that are very interested in acquiring those sites and then reconstructing the parks themselves. So there's just a strong interest, whether it's a current owner or a potentially new owner, of rebuilding parks. But again, this will happen down the road once the cleanup has happened. But some of those decisions may get made soon. So when the time comes when the parks are under construction and it's to buy a new home, that can be a complicated process. We're working with a group of organizations to help make information available about the process, to make it easier to navigate. And we're also working on making good information available about the different resources, the financing resources and packages that will be available to you to help you navigate. There's a number of organizations and companies that finance manufactured homes. And then there's some other resources that may be available as well. And we want to make sure you're aware of those. So we're assembling that information now. And so be patient, but we'll make that available, and we'll work with Representative Marsh to help direct people to those resources as they become available. So with that, I will turn it back and look forward to working with you all down the road.
So Bill, just one question.
Yes.
If I'm a homeowner, I've lost my home. All of this seems pretty intimidating, the idea of having to put together a loan package. Will there be some help helping me to negotiate and figure all of that out?
Yes, that's our hope, is that we can help create and establish some support mechanisms out there to help guide people through. And that's part of what we're trying to establish and identify local resources for that. But there are a number of organizations that are quite skilled at this and understand the work. And so it's a matter of just getting those identified and getting some of the other program information to them that they may or may not have available right now.
Okay, so stay tuned, but we're gonna do our best to help make it a reasonably negotiable process.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Bill. So I want to now just call out a few people who can be resources and allow them to introduce themselves. We don't have a lot of time for presentation about the kinds of things that they do, but a few sentences and we'll get to see your face and know what you do. So first, Emily Rena Dozier.
Well, I can't show my face, I don't think, but that's okay. I am a lawyer at the Oregon Law Center, and I will put my email address into the chat box here in a sec. And I'm a housing lawyer, and I am happy to talk to people about questions that they might have about either manufactured home issues or landlord-tenant issues for folks who might have rented a manufactured home rather than owning their home. And we provide legal assistance for folks with low incomes, but I can also help direct people to other resources. So please feel free to reach out.
Emily, I think you may be able to fix your video now if you want to try, so we can get a picture of your face before.
There
she
I am.
is.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for hosting this, and I hope to hear from folks, and take care.
Thank you. I know that Oregon Law Center, I just want to put in a note of thanks. It's been a tremendous partner in putting together this event and putting together some frequently asked questions from manufactured homeowners that we will be posting along with information from this tonight's forum. And we are so fortunate to have these kind of partners and these experts in manufactured housing as part of our effort here. And with that, John Van Landingham, you spoke briefly, but I'd love for you to be able to summarize the kind of landlord-tenant issues for people who may still be running into those.
So I think the one that we've heard the most frequently is the tenant's responsibility for cleanup. And I tried to answer that earlier with a simple no, you're not. And I'll be more legalistic in a written document on Representative Marsh's webpage. Other things that you probably are thinking about are, what about my rent? In my view, you were responsible for rent through September 8th. When the fire destroyed your home and your park, your tenancy ended, and you should be entitled to a refund of the rest of September's rent. Landlord also has 31 days from the end of your tenancy, which I believe was September 8th, to return your deposit. Second, another issue I think people are asking about is, well, what happens when my park gets rebuilt? Can I get back in? I would caution you to not assume that that's going to happen quickly. That's part of what Bill Van Vliet's message was. But I think the answer to that question is no, you're not entitled to get right back in, not unless the Oregon legislature changes the law in some way. It would be a new tenancy. Just as I said earlier, your old tenancy ended on September 8th when the fire burned your park. You're not automatically entitled to get back in. We might be able to learn some things from other communities, like in Northern California, where this is not uncommon. And one of our sources has suggested that we look at Santa Rosa and see what Santa Rosa did about that. I don't know, Rep, can you think of any other landlord-tenant questions you're getting?
I think those are the key ones that we've heard. I also just want people to know that we have a resource in you as if landlord-tenant issues that are specific to this situation evolve, we'll figure them out together.
Yep.
John Van Landingham being probably the state's premier expert on these kinds of questions. And finally, I wanted to introduce our representatives who are here today from the Oregon State Tenants Association, which is the organization that represents tenants and manufactured home parks. We have Nancy and Mike from the board. I'm not sure which one of you would like to say a couple of sentences about what OSTA does and how it might be able to assist people.
I can do that, Representative. My name is Nancy Engelhardt, and I don't have video right now, but maybe I will get it. I'm on the OSTA Executive Board, and OSTA can help by doing our part to provide support for all manufactured homeowners. We can provide assistance in channeling homeowners to the right agencies. We can support the homeowners by listening to their concerns and needs and just being an ear for them, somebody to vent on if they need to, as well as providing them the resources and the right people to go to for those resources. And we have a 1-800 call-in line that they can use, which I'll put in the chat. And also I can give them my OSTA email if they want to get in touch with me that way as well.
Super. Thank you so much, Nancy. You may be able to flash your video at this point just so that we can see what you look like.
Yeah. Yeah. There I am.
There you are.
Hello,
Wonderful.
folks. Yeah, thank you, Representative Marsh, for putting this on. It's phenomenal.
It's thanks to the experts that we have here. Thank you, Nancy, for being here. So with that, we have run through our formal presentations. We've introduced you to resources. We are going to be posting lots of information. And we've got a few minutes here where we can take some questions, although we don't have a ton of questions that have accumulated. But I'm going to start with this one and see if anybody in our panel of experts has an idea about the answer. The question is, my mother is trying to fill out an ORS 308-146 subsection 8 form for applying for property assessed. This may be a property tax form for the value of the demolished or removed building for her taxes. But there are two fields we do not know where to get the details. Due to COVID, the assessor is never available. Who can she reach out to for assistance? Warren, do you have any ideas about that? Do you do anything with that form?
I actually don't do anything with that form. It's possible, depending on the information they're looking for, maybe it's like a tax lot number or something like that, that may be on the ownership document. So there's a slight chance maybe the information's on the ownership document, but I'm not familiar with that form. Sounds like it's something a local assessor would handle.
That may be a property tax abatement form. I'm not familiar with it. Anybody, any other of the legal counsel on the phone? Anybody know what that is or have any advice here?
I think it's possible that it does sound like the property tax abatement form, and I will post a link to the form. But I think if it is a property tax form, likely just providing the tax lot number should be sufficient to identify. But I can't say exactly because I don't 100% understand the question.
Okay.
So Rep. Marsh, can I offer
Please.
something?
Yes.
One of our other remarkable Oregon Law Center lawyers is Sybil Hebb. And if my memory is correct, she attended a recent meeting of property tax assessors statewide with Department of Revenue, who give guidance to assessors about this very issue. And I think the sense was that they're still trying to figure out how to do this. Typically, assessments involve a physical visit to the home. Well, that's not going to happen now. And so they've got to figure out a new way. That's something I'm hoping we'll be able to get an answer for in more detail in the future.
Right. And if the person who asked that question is still watching this video, do reach out to my office specifically at rep.pammarsh@oregonlegislature.gov so we can make sure that we get an answer specific to help you with that. I think the main other area, I want to return to Sarah and FEMA for just a little bit more clarification, because you really caught people's attention with the question of how families can apply based on their children's documentation. One of the questions that came up was just to verify, that is, minor children will qualify a family. Is that correct?
That is correct. The only it's not a problem. It's just that because they are minor children, one of the parents has to be on the application as a co-applicant. But it is not a barrier in any way for them to apply as minors.
And then I know people are thinking this question, so I'm going to ask it. If that parent is not documented, is there any concern about the sharing of information between FEMA and other federal agencies?
We do not generally share information. There is a process by which law enforcement agencies can request through official channels information, but that is not something that we ever see, or it doesn't come through the field staff and the folks that are working here on the event. So those are things that happen sort of at a headquarters level. So we don't do reports. We don't send anything to anybody. We are not actively sharing information with law enforcement or other federal agencies. But there is, in fact, a process that they can request information through a information sharing process that happens at a headquarters level.
Okay, anybody from Oregon Law Center want to add anything to that? Any guidance for people who may not be documented? Okay. Not hearing anyone jump in. I think families that need some specific guidance or have some fears about that should not hesitate to reach out to Oregon Law Center or the Center for Nonprofit Legal Services in our down here in Medford to get some guidance that is specific to your situation. And with that, I don't actually see any other questions. I think we've been so thorough. We've done a good job of, in the context of the presentations, answering the questions that are in front of the audience. We know that any questions that occur to people should be, please forward them again to my email, which is posted which we will post in the chat if it's not already there. It's rep.pammarsh@oregonlegislature.gov. This is a long path ahead of us. We're going to be working on this for months and maybe even years to come, which is a hard thing to accept, but it is the reality of the situation. The good news is that we have lots of people across the state, lots of experts, lots of resources, lots of organizations that are there to help us. And I think we had them demonstrated on the webinar today. I want to issue a lot of thanks before we move on. First, tremendous thanks to our interpreters, Hilda Montenegro Fix and Yvonne Martinez Razo. Thank you so much for being there and making this fully accessible to all of our audience. For our ASL interpreter, Elizabeth Schleppler, I've seen you working hard as I've gotten to take time off during the presenters. You never got to take time off. Thank you so much for providing that service. Tremendous thanks to Rogue Climate, including Hannah Stoll and Princess Franks, who really reached out when they knew we were doing this to say, hey, we can help you do this in Spanish. We can help you do this in ASL. We can help you manage the technical aspects of this. That was a great gift. To Allison McIntosh of the Oregon Housing Alliance, who also helped us with technical resources and has been a great help on our FAQs that we put together. To all of the presenters, I can't call you all out, but I think we provided thanks to your expertise, a tremendous breadth of information today. And we know where to come to have future questions answered. So you're now in our stable of experts. Expect to be called upon in the future. And finally, to Paige Pruitt, who is my legislative staff here in the district and my totally dependable backup, technical and other resource. So Paige, thank you so much. And with that, please check the Rep. Pam Marsh Facebook page, my legislative website. We'll be posting a whole lot more information for you in the future days and weeks and even months. So thank you all for participating here with us tonight. Good night.